Good morning, Unity Renaissance. So very grateful to be here. And did you know that it is said that all are called? It's also said that few will answer. But what I want to say is that all are called and all do eventually answer. The song was perfect because it listed all different ways that we can be called to be. It is our beingness that we are called to, and the doingness follows. And so the called to be are qualities. And I'm just going to pick from our vision 3 qualities: love, peace, joy. Because I believe that everything will boil down to being called along those categories, and it tends to be about love. And so the conversation today is that love indeed points the way. We can get confused. Well, what am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to do? How am I called? What is my calling? Have you ever felt the pressure of that? What's my calling? And here's the thing. What if it is completely simple? What if it is just a quality of being that pulls at the heartstring, whispers in your ear, and is a way of being that can filter through absolutely everything that you do? And that the doing will shift and change according to how you're guided and pointed by love. We say in this community that God is all that there is and that God is love. And so all this is ever requiring of us to do is one thing and one thing only: return home, return to God consciousness over and over and over and over again. Which is why, so we're in this theme, we're in this conversation about reimagining unity and reimagining our lives. And we're also in a series about discovering our spiritual gifts. And as I said, the title is Love Points the Way. And so what we're focused on is discovering the unique way in which love extends and expresses as each of us. And we are encouraging one another to explore, to play, not to be serious about giving our gifts, but to play and explore the ideas of what would it be like to give my gifts in a unique way. And spiritual community ends up being a really beautiful place to explore that and to play at that without seriousness. You know why? Because no matter what happens, we're going to love you. And nobody's requiring you to do anything perfectly. All we're really trying to do is to tease the love out of one another so that we know that the unique way that we give our love, that unique way that we extend our love through the prism of our being, through our unique soul print, our unique way of being is always going to be perfect for each and every situation. And look around the room. If everyone is true to their very own soul print and the way that love extends in through and as each person here, we're all in our right and perfect place, giving our right and perfect gifts. I don't need to do what somebody else is doing. I'm being called to be who I am here to be. And guess what? So are you. Say, so am I. I'm called to be who I'm here to be. I'm called to be who I'm here to be. And I'm going to support you in doing you. I'm going to support you in doing you. And so that's what we're creating in our spiritual community. Now, I've been saying that we have to realign before we reimagine. You know what? You can reimagine right where you've been at, but guess what? You're going to keep projecting into your life the same thing. But when we realign, and as one of the quotes from last week from Charles Fillmore spoke to, was that we're the ones that adjust. We're the ones that adjust ourselves, the self that forgot who we are. We adjust to spirit and to spiritual principles. Back in the beginning, it talks about the fall of man and woman. Now, what that fall represents is simply this: a falling asleep to who we are, to what we are, and how we serve. And it even says in the Garden of Eden story that Adam and Eve fell into a deep sleep. But nowhere in the Bible does it say they awoke. That's what we're up to. We're up to awakening, returning to the garden, returning to God consciousness with every breath we breathe. And that's what this realignment is. We realign to reimagine how we give our gifts, to reimagine how our lives are to be. And so the very first step in realigning, as we talked about last week, is that we bring awareness to God consciousness. We turn towards God. And really what this is it actually involves a denial process. When we turn from the world of appearances, and that's all we're ever doing, we're turning away from the asleepness of the false belief in being separated from the mind of God. And what that ends up looking like is that we begin to view the world. We begin to view people, places, things, conditions, politics, governments, spouses, children, as our source. And that's not our source. There's only one source, one supply, one all-sufficiency in all of creation, and that is the God consciousness that created everything that is seen, unseen, in between, and beyond. And so when we bring our awareness to that and we actually turn to the God consciousness, that is the only thing you ever need to do to realign. Because the minute you do that, the minute you deny the world as your source and you affirm God consciousness, you affirm love consciousness as your source, you are bringing your attention and your awareness to that. And when we do that, my friends, that's when life begins. That's when love has the opportunity to extend and express. And that's where understanding comes in. That's where our prayers and affirmations come in to bring forth God consciousness, which brings forth an understanding of the way things work. And the way things work is our thoughts are things. What we focus on increases. When you focus on God, on love, on peace, on joy, guess what? That increases in our lives. Now, momentarily, I just focused on my shoes are still on. And so, I got to get these puppies off. So, anyway, I even wore shoes I could kick off. So much better. So we come forth to an understanding, and in that understanding, remember, the only thing you need to do is readjust your awareness. Turn your awareness. Then understanding descends into our consciousness. We end up availing ourselves of the knowingness of God consciousness. And guess what? You arrive home to your true self. That's the whole journey, and this is the prerequisite to realigning to reimagine something new, something extraordinary in, through, and as our lives. And so I grew up in the Great Lakes region, and in the Great Lakes regions, there are these mechanisms that assist boats from going from one body of water to another. I think they probably have them around here too. I'm just less familiar with them, but they're called locks. And when I was a little girl and going through school, we would go visit these, we'd go on trips, we'd go see what they were, and that's what this reminds me of. When we're realigning readjusting our consciousness. It's like we're going from one body of water to another body of water. And we need to adjust ourselves to where we're going. And I found this really fabulous little animated thing that says, so the boat comes in at the level of water and it enters the lock, and then it closes that off and it lowers or raises the boat to the new level of water so that it can continue upon its journey. I think my animation is supposed to take the boat down. There we go. Come on. Oh, there it is. And it feels that way sometimes. It feels like it takes a little time, but it just takes a minute. It just takes a couple minutes, and then we go on our way. So that's the idea here. And I really wanted an illustration that went the other way, that went up, because I always think of God consciousness as up, but we can also think of it as going within and deep. What? Anyway, we can also think of it as going within and deep, that God consciousness. So we're always just readjusting, and we're readjusting what? Our own thought process, our own belief system. And it's we that must do it. So take a breath with me here. And for us, it's always readjusting from the outer as being our source to the inner. God consciousness, love consciousness as being our source and our supply. And so when we realign to reimagine, there is a statement that says, all is love, yet all is law. Now, love points the way. When you're trying to discern what your gifts are, what your talents are, what you're to be doing with yourself, with your life, it's love that's going to point the way. When I was a younger person, I always looked to other resources to tell me which way I should go in my life. And I remember when I was at a particular juncture in my life, I was working in sales, and I was going to a Unity Church in Overland Park, Kansas, and it was in the mid-90s. And I loved these teachings, and I wanted to apply them in my life more fully and into my occupation and what I did, so that my whole life was really dedicated to these principles. Now, back then, I didn't know I would be doing exactly this now. But the first few steps of that were following love, following my heart. What does my heart want me to do? But I also was I wanted to do things the right way. I wanted to be credentialed in a certain way. And so I remember looking at two different pathways, if you will, a fork in the road. And one way was going to take me into becoming a therapist. Nothing wrong with that. It just wasn't exactly what my path ended up being. And the other was to become a practitioner of truth, which meant a prayer practitioner, to utilize prayer as a healing modality in my life. And I remember talking with my dad, who was very practical, and he's like, but what's that gonna do for you? How will you earn money doing that? How can that be a career for you? Because he wanted his baby to be able to take care of herself. Don't we want that for our kids? But what I know today is that ultimately the way of taking care of ourselves is to follow our hearts and to follow love. And so as we allow love to point the way, the law makes it happen. We've already talked about the law when we talked about the lock, when we talked about shifting our focus and realigning our thoughts. That's how it works. But the direction of love pointing the way is to focus on love and ask what love wants to express through us. And so that's how we discern our gifts and our talents. Now, again, being in the Great Lake area, this kind of gives you a map of how all of this works together. And the reason I love this is that I grew up, right? Well, yeah, right. I'm trying to go for Michigan. Where's Michigan? Right there. So I grew up on Lake Erie, right there. And what was beautiful about that is that our home, behind our house was a woods. And in the woods, if you went down this hill, there was a creek, and it was called Swan Creek. And Swan Creek, if you were to follow the flow of the creek, it would lead you to the Maumee River. And the Maumee River was bigger, and it was making its way to Lake Erie. And that once you got into the Lake Erie system, that you can follow the waterway system by going through the series of locks to the Lawrence Seaway, and that all of this water, all of these bodies of water, return to the ocean. They return to the ocean. And in this case, the ocean represents source. We're always finding our way home. We're always finding our way back to our source. And my father, when he used to tell jokes, when he got older in life, or a story, he'd start the story, and it was usually one I was familiar with. And I knew the series that had to occur before he got to the end. Well, when he got older, he used to just say, one thing leads to another. So he'd say the beginning, and then he'd go, yeah, and then one thing led to another, and then boom, whatever the end of the story was. And that's what this system reminds me of. And this is what love pointing the way reminds me of. It reminds me that if I'm willing to let love point the way, going back 30 years ago, being attracted to prayer, and that's how I was going to serve, who knew it would have ended up here? And guess what? This isn't where it ends up. This isn't a destination, it continues. And so one thing leads to another. So we just become willing to realign with love and let love point the way. What would I love right now? What tickles my heart? What brings me joy? What brings me peace? These are the questions we want to keep asking ourselves to discern and discover what is seeking to emerge through us. And in the beginning, you're like that boat that enters the locks. You're still mired in the world thought system. And you have to go into the system of prayer and meditation to go deeper and deeper in your consciousness and your heart to arrive at what's true for you, and then carry on with your journey. Love pointing the way. So last week, one of the quotes towards the end was, don't die with your music still in you, with your gifts still in you. It was a Wayne Dyer quote. We want to be giving our gifts. We want to be not only following that thread of desire, that love pointing the way and giving them all along the way, but we also want to trust it and know that it's going to lead us, and that by giving our gifts, it doesn't diminish us in any way. I've said it many times, there's no loss in this system. There's no loss in God consciousness. There's only gain. And so this reminds me of the Bible story. And in the Bible, there's the parable of the talents. And what talents symbolizes is not only a currency or something that is of value, it also represents what your gifts are, what your abilities are. And in this parable, there is a master who has these servants, and there are 3 of them, and he gives a different talent, a different amount of talent to each one. To the first one, he gives 5. To the second one, he gives 2. And to the third one, he gives 1. And he goes away and then returns. And it's incumbent upon the servants, upon the individuals that he gave it to really implicit is to do something with it. And so the first one who had the 5, he exchanged them and doubled his. Same with the second one who had 2 talents. But the third one who was given 1 was afraid. And he buried his talent. And when he dug it back up and gave it back to his source, to his master, he said, I was afraid, but at least I was assured I could give you what I was given. Now, with the first two, they were praised. They were told, you've been faithful, watching over very little, but you've been faithful. But to this poor third person, I mean, there was no mincing of words in this scripture. It was a wrathful experience, and the person was banished and scolded and told he was slothful. And then the quote comes, which I think confuses a lot of people, but the quote then says, for to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. Now that just doesn't seem fair, does it? It really doesn't. But what we have and what we have been given is not really ours to keep. It's not really ours to hide. Remember I said how each of us is a soul print. And each of us, when we follow love's desire in our heart, are all going to give forth in a different way. We're going to extend our gifts in a different way, and how each way is necessary to the whole. But if we become fearful and hide our gifts, they serve no one. But more importantly, it doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve us. Because there's a trust and a joyfulness that we explore when we give our gifts. We're in the flow. We're trusting that as we give, we receive. You know, we sing it every week. Give and it is given back to you. What? Pressed down, shaken. We do the shaking, you know, and we do all this. Do we really believe it? Because it's not just with our financial offering, it's with our gifts that we give of ourselves to our community. So there are a couple of quotes that kind of support this. Not more than kind of support this. This one's from Charles Fillmore, and it says, the knowledge that substance is omnipresent and that people cannot therefore impoverish themselves by giving, but rather will increase their supply, will enable us to give freely and cheerfully. Don't you just want to give freely and cheerfully without being afraid, without hiding in any way who you are meant to be? A Course of Love says this: your gifts, your talents, your uniqueness are your service. Do you know that when you show up in this community and you are just exactly who you are, you walk through the door and you say hello to someone, you're being in service. You're giving of yourself to another. And understand you cannot come to understand this reciprocal nature of giftedness, that what God has given only needs to be received, and that what you have received only needs to be given. It's so simple. And that as we give, it's like priming the pump. You give a little water to get that pump going, and then it gushes forward. I know most of us aren't familiar with that technology, but there was a time when that was how you got water out of a pump, right? You had to prime the pump. And me not being that mechanical, I'm probably not explaining it exactly right, but you get the gist. We give so that we receive and that we give more. And it's being in this flow. It is consistent with our core value of community. So the indivisibleness of God is simply this: an unbroken chain An unbroken chain of giving and receiving. Thus is this the definition of unity as well. Unity is in the indivisibleness of God, the unbroken chain of giving and receiving. So take a breath with me here. I said not to die, not to go through another day, because we can die daily. Not to go through another day, another moment without giving your gift. Your gift is a hug. Your gift is allowing the emanation of love to extend to your brothers and sisters. We can do it right now. Take a breath right now. We breathe in love, the love of God. We receive it. And when we open our eyes, we may look around the room. You can really do it. I know you look up here, but you can look around the room and give a wink, a nod, a smile. A little nod saying, I see you. I know who you are. You're God in expression. I know what you are. You're here as Christ, as the awakened one. I know how you serve. You serve through your loving embrace and through your givingness. When we bury our gifts and talents and our abilities, we end up like the beggar who's sitting on a box. You know the story of a beggar. He's sitting on a box and all these people are walking by and he's asking for a handout, for money, for something. And this one person goes by, the beggar sitting on the box, and he just looks at him and he says, what's inside that box? And the little beggar guy says, gosh, I don't know. I've been sitting on it for so long, I don't even know what's in it. And so he gets curious, and eventually he looks in the box. You know what's in there? Gold. His light is illuminated with gold. His face is illuminated from the light of the gold, and he's so excited. He didn't need to be sitting on that box begging. The gifts were right within him. The gifts are right within you. Say, the gifts are right within me. I don't need to go looking anywhere. I just look inside myself. Whoa! Check that out. I'm going to give forth from that. I'm going to give forth from that. You see, when we don't give our gifts and we sit on them or we bury them, we forget about them. Out of sight, out of mind, and you forget you have them. And you start looking outward and you see other people's gifts and you think, oh, they have them, but I don't. I got news for you. All of that gold of the giftedness that you are is right within you. And when you behold it in another, and when you spot it in another, what does that mean? You got it. You spot it, you got it. And so we look within. We look within. Right where we are, all of God is. All of God is. And God is our all-sufficiency in everything. I had this experience recently of what are my gifts to give when I didn't feel like it, when I felt down, when I felt in the doldrums. That's the precise moment to look within and give your gifts. I'm telling you, I experienced a shift through giving. Just a little gift of love. Just a little something. It doesn't have to be big to get that pump going. It is the precise thing that's going to raise you into healing and raise you out of the doldrums. Heal and cure your depression, your sadness. It heals the body because, my goodness gracious, does it ever feel good to give? You got to keep moving that body of giving that you may expand to receive, so that you may be in the kingdom, the queendom of heaven now, which is the fulfillment of our vision. What's our vision? Awakened world, living in peace, love, and joy. Thank you. I needed help with that. That's it. And so we go into our time of meditation. We go into our time of prayer. Take a breath with me here. Oh, my goodness gracious. Guess what I'm up to? I'm up to realigning in this holy instant. I'm up to pausing right here, right now. I invite you to allow my words to become your words, to become the voice of your highest self. I'm done sitting on that box, looking outwardly for my good. I realign now. I take a breath. Will you pause and take a breath with me? I turn from the world of appearances. I turn from the sleepfulness of having fallen and forgotten who I was, who I am. I am spirit. I am unlimited. I am free. I turn from believing that my source is outside of me, and I turn to God consciousness. I turn to love. As I breathe this love in, I know that love points the way. It points the way to the gifts that I have, the abilities, the talents. And I say to Spirit, holy and divine, use me. Use me, that I may be a channel of your love, that I may be a channel of your peace, that I may be a channel of your joy. And in so doing, in so giving, I receive abundantly. And so I pause in this holy instant. In this realignment, I claim myself to be as Christ, to understand that I am the creator of my experience, to understand that nothing occurs in my experience except that which I call forth. So I call forth love now, healing now, peace now. I focus on this, and lo and behold, it expands and increases. I've looked deeply within and I see the golds there. And I am willing to give forth from it for the glory of God. And so in the moment of stillness, I simply ask, how may I serve? And I let love point the way. How would I love to give and serve? And I listen in the stillness. The movement of the mind of God is upon us now. The question has been asked. We've knocked upon the door. It will open. It will be answered. Take note. Follow the heart. And be in that flow this day. I release this word. It returns fulfilled. It's already done. We're at play now. I've done my part. I've aligned. I'm at play now. And I play at being in the flow as we all sing together. Flow, flow through me.